I want to welcome everyone to the AY 25-26 Committee Chair Orientation. Many, but not all of you were at the recent luncheon we had for the Senate Core and Senate Committee members that preceded SEC. But we also have folks joining us from sort of campus committees that have Senate appointed members on them. So there'll be maybe some new folks here. Some folks who've heard some of this before, so I'm going to try to move through it pretty quickly and just hit some highlights, and then I really have it open up for discussion. And as our friend Yoda here says, everything I'm going to cover is, I think, very nicely captured on the Senate website. Particularly, there's a guide right here for chairs. I want to give a shout out to working with Mario over the summer to go through that and refine and streamline all of those guides. And that's a nice one-stop shop. So I would direct all chairs of all committees to take a look at that guide. And if you have questions or suggestions for improving it, we're a learning organization, or we should be. So please let us know if we've made some sort of omission or error or mischaracterization of anything. We've been building it forward from past versions and just trying to modernize and ideally shorten it a little bit. So I do want to start out with land acknowledgement. And one of my goals for this year is, these are important things to talk about, but it's more important to do things about it. So what I'm hoping this year is, in addition to doing the land acknowledgement, we can also have conversations about how we're serving historically underserved students, in particular Indigenous folks, and how we're creating an environment for them that not only sort of a land acknowledgement, but also taking an inclusive approach to their success and their experiences. So we stand upon a land that carries the footsteps of millennia of Kumeyaay people. They're people whose traditional lifeways intertwine with a worldview of earth and sky and a community of living beings. This land is part of a relationship that's nourished, healed, protected, and embraced the Kumeyaay people to the present day. It is part of a worldview founded in the harmony of the cycles of the sky and the balance and the forces of life. The Kumeyaay, red and black, represent the balance of those forces that provide for harmony within our bodies as well as the world around us. As students, faculty, staff, and alumni at San Diego State University, we acknowledge this legacy from the Kumeyaay. We promote this balance in life as we pursue our goals of knowledge and understanding. We find inspiration in the Kumeyaay spirit and open our minds and hearts. It is the legacy of the red and black, is the land of Kumeyaay. Ayayun, my heart is good. And this was just acknowledging Michael Misquish for his efforts in collaboration with campus folks and members of the Kumeyaay Nation to develop this land acknowledgement. So looking forward to working with all of you in that spirit. And let's step into sort of our goal here, which is really get everyone comfortable with their role as chair, whether you're a new chair or continuing chair. I'm going to briefly move through some shared governance concepts and practices. All of this is, again, captured on the website nicely, but just to hit some highlights. But first, we're briefly just to who's on first, what's on second in terms of membership. By way of introduction, my name is Stephen Schallenberg. I got the honor of serving as the Senate chair this year, and I'll pass it over to the other Senate officers present to introduce themselves.
Sure, I'm Taharka Ade, and I have the honor of serving as the vice chair for this year.
Chris Curtis is at Constitution and Bylaws. I'm not sure if Sridhar is here. I don't have a full roster here.
Yeah, not seeing them.
Okay, and Sridhar Seshagiri is serving as treasurer. Our parliamentarian, Nora Schultz, is also at CBL. And Mario, where are you down there? Introduce yourself, Mario.
I'm Mario Saldana, the Senate analyst.
And Mario keeps the wheels in the bus and has us moving forward. So I'm going to give a shout out to him for working with me as an incoming chair for all the arcane knowledge and the conjuring and clarifications and patience as we went through and tried to both build on the strengths of shared governance and identify some areas where we can continue to strengthen the process and move it forward. Because as a Senate, so sort of chair's orientation, the Senate officers were just mentioned. We serve on Senate Executive Committee. Many of you are on Senate Executive Committee, and we serve with the following folks. And there's not going to be a quiz on this, but just to put some faces and names with various roles. Some of these are full-time administrators. We also have the president of Associated Students, Karen Holstrom, and CFA chapter president, Gloria Rhodes. We have immediate past president, past Senate chair, Nola Butler Bird. I want to thank her for all of her work and contributions over the years serving as Senate, and thank her for continuing to serve as an ASCSU senator. So multiple hats. Parliamentarian, we have 3 senators at large: David Cannon, Lynn Lockwood, and Marissa Vasquez. And these are elected from the Senate body to represent the Senate body on Senate executive. So these folks serve on SEC, and we also have on SEC the chairs of the 12 so-called Senate core committees. So some of those folks are in this meeting. Just want to put faces with names. I see her just across the board. I see Savannah there. I see Catherine. I only have a limited view, so thanks to all those folks that could make it to today. And so these folks serve on SEC as chair by virtue of their position as chairs on these Senate core committees. And we have important shared governance work is being led by 12 Senate committees. So they're listed here. So these are not the core committees, so they're not represented directly on Senate Executive Committee, but they are important work. And I want to stress here that the committees and the work that all of you are doing is, without you, Senate would sit around largely staring at one another, because it's really from you that the details and the hard work and the difficult conversations come to the Senate for more sometimes difficult conversations, but hopefully informed conversations. So I just want to thank all of you for the work you've been doing and the work you will be doing to sort of helping Senate take an informed approach to shared governance. In addition, I just want to step way back, and there's a total of 135 senators. I invite you to check out the Senate roster for all the details, and thank Mario and also Kevin Jeffrey, chair of CCE, for maintaining this, and all the tabs for all the other committees, which I'll just mention here in passing. If you need to find out where anyone is or what their position is or where they're serving, this is the official roster. So if you have a Senate, if you have a committee and someone's been serving in your committee and they're not listed here, they may be doing great service and we won't have them continue, but they're not official, and we want to get folks official. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well as we go on. In addition to those sort of Senate committees, we also have 14 campus committees that have Senate appointed members. So this is getting an increasingly larger and larger tent. They're shown over here on the far right with blue underlining, from Bookstore Advisory Committee to the Teacher Prep program and Transportation Advisory Committee. So all of these committees have Senate representation or Senate appointed members that serve on them. So we thank those of you that are chairing those committees for being here as well. One thing that may be helpful to folks, and it is a ongoing constant gardening to keep this up to date, but I just want to give a shout out to both Mario and past and present CCE chairs for maintaining this Senate roster, because in addition to listing all the senators on one of the tabs, it also has information for every one of these committees. And I have a screenshot here of AP&P. So these tabs include information on membership as shown, the function of the committee, who is chairing it, the meeting information. And one addition this year is that we've also added open referrals to the base of that tab, so folks can see who's working on what, whether they have a contribution and service to that referral, and we'll talk about referrals later on, or if they have a question about the referral. It just makes it a little easier to see who's working on what. So all of this is on the Senate website under the Senate roster, just by way of introduction and context. Probably not any questions there, but if there are any, I'll just pause for a second for anything I missed, or corrections or additions, clarifications from anyone. Okay. That's where I practice my wait time. Good thing to practice in the first week of classes, and very, very hard to do. Okay, so I've got 3 slides here that on shared governance concept and practices. And shared governance can be described in lots of different ways. My sort of chimp level definition that works for me, really 2 key components, right, is that ensuring that everyone is heard and that their perspective is valued from all relevant voices. So actively seeking that out. And then the flip part is that eventually someone has to make a decision and be accountable for that decision. And so there's lots of different ways you can think about shared governance. That is probably the simplest distillation in my mind. If you're interested in appreciating more about shared governance, until 2019, we did not actually have a campus definition. And so in response to some kerfuffles across campus about shared governance, we put a working group together and came up with this resolution on shared governance. I would invite you to read through. It's held up pretty well, I think, and is more critical than ever. So that's sort of a definition from my mind. There are other definitions out there, but if we step back and think about shared governance from the system to the campus, at the system level, the CSU level, there's a board of trustees, the office of chancellor, and the academic senate of the CSU. And these three have various dynamic interactions. Much flows from the board of trustees one direction, one way, and oftentimes one way to academic senate, but senate should have the voice to feed back to office of chancellor to inform those decisions. Sometimes that connection is a little frayed or not optimal, but I think that's something we're going to have to continue to work on strengthening as a body and as a collection of campuses full of faculty, staff, and students. There are no faculty, staff, and students at the office of the chancellor, which is, I think, part of the challenge here. They're a little bit removed from lived experience, but that's commentary. Is this being recorded? Oh, yes, it is. But that's my commentary, and I'll stick with it. So that's at the system level. At the campus level, there are various forms of shared governance structures. We have a university senate, and I want to stress it is a university senate. It is not a faculty senate. It has representatives, faculty, tenure track, and lecturers, staff, students, and administrators. So most of those positions are elected by some sort of constituency. A few are ex officio or by virtue of their position that they serve. And we also then interact with the president, Adela de la Torre, obviously, and there's links here to all these places. And if you've been in Senate before, you know the way this sort of works, looking at this working definition of shared governance, is that the body of Senate, of the University Senate, will make action items that are approved and go to the president with the force and power of support from the University Senate. And that has captured ideally all voices, and that's informed that action item, but it is the responsibility and accountability of the president to actually approve it. And if she chooses not to approve it, that is her right, but it's also the responsibility that she articulates her reason for not doing so. And in the final analysis, someone has to be accountable for those decisions. That is also the president and the administration. So there is a dynamic here that hopefully folks can appreciate. And I want to give a shout out to Constitution and bylaws for sort of strengthening that expectation of providing a rationale if the president decides not to approve something. It's always nice to have the rationale provided in an explicit way to the body. A lot of words on this slide. This is simply an extract of that 2019 resolution on principles of shared governance. You can find it along with some other guiding philosophies on the Senate website. If you're Senate chair, I encourage you to take a look. I just show this to highlight sort of the three sort of key facets that I think are complementary to that definition, which is respect, communication, and responsibility. And those are very powerful components, and it's something we should always strive towards. We are human. Moments get hot, tempers flare, but if we can always try to regress to that and strive for those three things in our interactions, not just within Senate, but across the broader campus. I want to make a comment here that shared governance is not just limited to this delegate body. Shared governance should move across the entire campus and all nooks and crannies. So, and that was actually part of what was discussed in that resolution on principle of shared governance. This isn't just for the University Senate. This is for the campus, and was embraced and endorsed by the president that everyone across campus embrace these principles for all their operations and actions. So what does the Senate do? And again, lots of words on this slide, but this is the shortest distillation I can make of almost from the policy file for the key things. So a lot of it is around policy with what I call it policy with a capital P that shows up in the policy file. But we provide advice to the president We're responsible for approval of curriculum that also then goes to the president for her approval, but she largely takes that on unless we're breaking some sort of rule that everyone's missed. Almost all that is approved as action items. And we're also responsible for trying to bring issues to this body to surface it up in a structural way to the president, to administration, so that the university can move forward. So your committee work is really fundamental to the responsibilities here, because you're doing the work. You are in the proverbial trenches in a lot of cases with your very specialized knowledge. It's critical to come to the Senate so that we can look at it and everyone can have a chance to ask questions. That's why it's really critical that when you have an item coming to Senate, if you can join us, it's really helpful. There may not even be any questions, but simply having you present when there is something is incredibly useful for you to either make commentary or introduce it or to respond to questions. So I encourage that to happen. And all these slides will be available. I think they're either posted on the calendar invite or Mario will be doing shortly. Okay, so your responsibility as chair. Again, this is where I'm going to point to this. I'm going to click over to it. The guide here for the committee chair guide, we've gone through and reviewed and revised for summer, over the summer, and it's really a one-stop shop. So I really encourage you, if you've not as a new chair or even as a continuing chair, there's a lot of information here, and just encourage you to visit this guide. It's under guides, Senate chairs and Senate chairs and officers. There's an annual checklist there. I'll show it briefly, but around this time, hopefully you're finalizing your committee membership and schedules, starting to meet and talk about your annual goals, etc., looking at referrals, which we'll discuss in a minute. And the big thing is getting any items to the Senate in a timely manner so that they can be considered by the broader body. Is that still on full screen for everyone? Are you still seeing the full screen, or is it small? Small? Okay, let me
We can see the tabs at the top.
now it's how to be a great chair. Oops, let me go back one. So everything that's down here is basically a distillation of what's in that guide. So it's a distillation of a distillation. Probably the biggest things to be mindful of, just at this point, confirming your meeting times and locations in that Senate roster, making sure that your committee members are aware of when you're meeting. I encourage you to put out a call for agenda items with plenty of response time and include a deadline for when you need it by. And also for your meetings to get on agenda at least 4 days prior to your meetings. That's what we're trying to hold ourselves to. There's a 4-day rule, as it's called. And that's so in our very complex lives, people can find the nooks and crannies to work through this information. And we're really trying to avoid new things coming at the last minute, because it does not serve the body at all to have things coming at last minute. And then we're not really making great decisions together. There's a quick reference guide for actions and voting that might be useful to you for running your meetings. We'll be referring to that in the Senate meetings. Also familiar with the university policy file. This is truly a tome, but one thing I always encourage committees to do is that if you're working on a particular topic, check in to see what does the policy file say about that thing. And this is where the Control F find is your friend, right? To sort of find different search terms around a particular issue. And we're also happy to connect with you to support your committee work. Probably the big thing here is if you are submitting action items or information items or reports, they need to be submitted to the Senate website by noon on Wednesday before SEC. So SEC usually meets a couple weeks before. So look at the calendar on the Senate website for that. And that is because I'm trying to make a little bit of a turn here for those that are at SEC. We talked about this some, is that there's one agenda. The agenda comes through SEC, and it's an opportunity to both approve it, but also to improve it. SEC members can take a first look at it. And if there's confusion among SEC, there's probably going to be broader confusion among the Senate body. So part of what we want to do there is clarify things, make sure they're ready for prime time spotlight, so to speak. And there's also a little bit of a loop there. If there's some refinements that need to be made or clarifications, we can do some clarifications there. Encourage you to attend SEC and Senate. And as it mentioned down here in the next to last bullet, we may ask you after it's gone through Senate to maybe take a quick look at some things and do some minor revisions. We're not looking for major revisions, but just to have you in the driver's seat to improve with directive and suggestions from SEC for how we can have it land in Senate in the most productive way. One of my rules is thou shalt not waste the Senate's time. We've got a lot of people in there, so SEC can serve as a little bit of a crucible in the best sense of the word, so that the content coming to Senate does not have a lot of things that don't need to be there that will catch and cause friction. Whether it's minor like corrections and language, every one of those motions, even if it's a friendly motion, it takes up time. So the more we can capture that early on, the better for everyone. With all that said, you can make late adds from the floor. This is perfectly allowed. You can do motion from the floor at Senate to add things to the agenda, but let's strive to avoid those. There will be exceptions, and some people say, well, the exceptions always come from administration. Not necessarily true, but we're going to take a very keen eye. That is your right, but the goal here, if you think about it, is that whatever's coming to Senate as a body, everyone has a chance to look at it so we have an informed conversation. It doesn't serve us well if half the people haven't had a chance to read it because it's just coming to the floor now. That said, it's the body's choice to do so. For information items, it's a simple majority to add. For action items, it's a 2/3 for a reason. It takes 2/3 of everyone agreeing to accept this as a late add, and that means that everyone feels ready, or 2/3 feel ready at least to take action on an item with limited time for digestion of it. So I think these things will help us move forward. For you, more ways to be a great chair. Committees have varying composition. If you've been a chair for your committee for a while, you know all of this better than I do, right? Some have prescribed seats. Check the roster for details. But the key thing is all elected senators serve on a Senate core committee or a Senate committee or are appointed to one of the campus committees. Sorry, I omitted that part. It got flipped off. But committee on committees and elections, they are the ones that bring appointments to Senate for confirmation. And so the key thing is if you have someone on your committee and they're doing great work and you love them, but they aren't listed on that Senate roster, they aren't officially operating as a member of that committee. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be there. Doesn't mean they aren't valued. It just means we want to make sure that we know they're there, so we're not trying to fill a seat that doesn't exist. So please, please, please work with CCE, Committee on Elections, to make sure that your committee appointments, as shown in the roster, are congruent with what you've been working in the real world in your meetings. For faculty, you should check in with your college CCE representative. And Savannah and Brianna, check with me on this, but my understanding, I'm still learning the ropes, lecturers are appointed to committees through lecture affairs. Staff are appointed through staff affairs. That information, I think, still comes to Committee on Committees to be added to the information items. And if I'm making an error there, please jump in and correct me. I want to make sure I get that right. So, Savannah, please.
Thank you, Stephen. I know I've been collaborating with committees, so that's great to get some clarification on how exactly that works. And then I just wanted to add, just for clarification, that lecturers are also faculty. Thanks.
Yes, I did not mean to other you. It simply, this is with regards to the appointment process operates differently. I probably could have said that better here. I should have had tenure track in front of faculty. Great point. Thank you for correcting me.
Appreciate you.
Yep. Yeah, tenure track faculty through the college reps. And I think this is efficient because it helps balance out representation across all the lecturers which don't have positions. It's more of a broad open pool of appointments through there. So I think this is a nice combination. We just have to do it artfully to make sure we're getting good representation across all the committees in a timely way, right? Your checklist right here, this is pulled from the guide for chairs. And so we're in August. This is the time and season to be sort of looking at your committee membership. Hopefully, if you're a new chair, you've had a crossover with the outgoing chair and just work with the chair of CCE or lecture affairs, staff affairs to confirm and finalize your committee membership. And it's finalized once it goes through Senate as, I think, an information item is typically how it comes in. Correct me if I'm wrong, might be an action item. But here's sort of a flow of things. These are all outlined in the guide for chairs. So I'm not going to go through that guide because you can read faster than I can speak. If you have questions about any of those things, Senate officers are here to help you. If we don't know the answers, we'll figure it out. And if we don't know, we'll ask Mario because he knows everything. So that'd be a great chair. Otherwise, in your meetings, just try to ensure that all voices are heard and decision-making is informed. I want to make a point here about abstentions from votes. And I stressed this in the senator meeting. Abstaining from voting is essentially refusing to vote. You may have good reasons for refusing to vote, but it is a refusal to fulfill what you were elected to do. There may be very good reasons for that. What I invite you to invite your members to do is reflect on their rationale for not voting. If they're not voting because they haven't done the necessary reading and background to make an informed decision, that's on them. If they're not voting because they feel that there hasn't been enough discussion, then maybe there's an opportunity there to take some action within the meeting to increase that understanding so everyone takes more informed stance and can vote more fully. Because it has an impact on the body and beyond, the Senate body and beyond. We have a large number of abstentions. I'll also mention, I said this at the senator meeting, disproportionate, I suspect, a large number of abstentions. There are many administrators who feel, even though they are members of Senate, that they should not be voting because it feels weird. You are a member of Senate by definition. So by definition, you should be voting on items. It's your choice to vote, but what shouldn't be happening is abstentions in that flavor, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. Of course, it's your right to vote or not to vote. But if you're voting, just to remind folks, there's simple majority votes and 2/3 majority votes. Different items require different voting numbers. For example, 2/3 majority typically involves some change in the Constitution or bylaws at the Senate level. Usually it's a simple majority. Motions pass or fail based on yeas and nays. Abstentions aren't considered in the calculation. So it's just yeas divided by yeas plus nays, a very simple fraction. Also encourage you, if needed, to establish speaking limits. You're probably thinking, I'd like a speaking limit right now on this guy, right? But speaking limits in terms of discussion around items. And what I encourage you to do is establish those at the start of a given item, not halfway through people speaking. So that speaking limit can continue through discussion of a particular item, and then you may want to relax it. This is just a way of managing the meeting, but you don't want to do it right in the middle of a conversation around things. That's just sort of disenfranchising to folks. Encourage you to have basic sort of Robert's Rules of Orders visuals on hand. We have this one on the right. We're developing more. We're happy to share these with you. The other thing I'd encourage finally is that you check the Senate meetings as chair. If something went on to the last Senate, check the minutes for congruence with your understanding what happened, because you are the subject matter expert for that item that came in from your committee. So if there's a mischaracterization or a miscapture of information, please reach out to us so we can refine those minutes before they come to the Senate floor. I'm going to pitch it over to Harka to talk a little about, because the vice chair is sort of the maestro of referrals. And this was discussed a little earlier in the luncheon, but when I pitch it over to him just to talk about referrals a little bit. Harka.
Sure, thank you, Stephen. If you give me a second, let me pull up Trello here. Thought I had it pulled up, but I don't know why.
How about if I pull up Trello on my end? Would that be
Well,
helpful?
yeah, you can do that. I mean, I just pulled it out while you did that, but all right. So
Let me know when
afternoon.
you want to go to it.
Yeah, actually go back to the QR code for me.
Yep.
So yes, I'm going to take a few minutes to make sure we're all comfortable using Trello to track Senate referrals. So big picture first, Trello is our shared home base. It's where each of the referrals lives, and it lives on each card. It helps us just kind of track and manage the referrals instead of them flying around in emails and things of that nature. So as of August 15th, I mentioned in the luncheon that we have about 50 open referrals. We have a few less than that now. Brian, I saw your reminder about one of them, but it's still a lot, and we'll need to start chipping away at those. And to quickly whittle those down, we have this QR code here that will bring up just a list of referrals in Trello that you can just make, the chairs can make notes regarding each of those referrals, if something's going on with them, or especially if they're, defunct referrals, and we can go ahead and archive them. You can just go ahead and let me know. Short and simple, it doesn't have to be anything long. So doing a walkthrough of Trello itself, if I can share, let's see. Here we go. Okay, so your view of Trello is going to look different than mine. There's different costs involved with who can be added to all the cards. And so chairs can typically see just what concerns them and their committee. But so I'm gonna pick on AP&P again here, as I did the luncheon. Generally, when you pull up a card, you'll see a summary at the top of the card. That's the description box giving you some of the sort of a gist of what's going on. But if you scroll down, you're going to find a PDF here, which will have the full referral and everything including in it. So you have a history of why we have this referral and what's going on with it. There's also a built-in checklist that shows the key steps and who's doing what. Generally, you don't have to check off much here, which this actually might change a little bit. We had a little back and forth at the last at the luncheon, and I do want chairs to be just a little bit more engaged with these referrals, because if you notice these notes here, Pam is very good with this. Brian is also very good with this, making sure that we kind of know what's going on in committee. So just look out for that. If this checklist changes sometime in the near future, I'll be sure to update everyone. But usually, the rest of it just kind of, goes by who you see here in brackets. All right.
I see that Linda has her hand up, maybe for a question relevant to this. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry. Yes, Erlyn.
It was a question from many slides ago, and it's not urgent and not important, so I don't want to interrupt this. Unless this is the time to ask. It's just
This
small
is the last slide, the last topic, Erlyn,
Yep.
so we're about to
Keep
go to
going.
open discussion. Thank you.
Sounds
Sorry
good.
for raising your hand earlier.
No worries, sounds good.
Other than that, just a few updates for those of you who may have been in the earlier meeting. Stephen mentioned that committee rosters, referrals now appear in the committee rosters. So for anybody on the committee, it doesn't have to be the chair who knows exactly what's going on with referrals. People on the committee themselves can go onto the roster and see which referrals are still a part of your committees. Please include relevant referrals in your meeting agendas and start mapping out a plan to move forward with them this year. And one thing that I didn't mention at the luncheon is that those referrals that are about 2 years or so old, I'm just going to have to go ahead and start archiving them, because especially if I'm not seeing any movement on them whatsoever, it's kind of, the backlog is, as I said, we need to cut them down. It's becoming a little too much. If you're new, stuck, or unsure on what to do with the referrals, please don't worry. Again, the officers are here to help. And as Stephen said earlier, the officers can't help. Mario surely has the answer for us. Any questions regarding referrals, or we can also move on to the discussion in general?
There's a question in the chat from Savannah.
Sure.
I'm so sorry if I missed this, but do we go into the Senate website to get to these referrals?
Yeah, so you should be receiving, well, you can go to the Senate website. There's a link to Trello on the Senate website for your use, but you should be receiving emails. Once I upload one of these cards, I usually tag you in it. Yeah, Trello.com.
It
I
could be that
and it-
we don't have referrals outstanding, but you can get to it from the website. I just want to make sure I can get in and keep an
That
eye
is
on it.
correct. That's
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Catherine, I will archive the referral for you when it becomes old.
So we just
there any more
tell
questions?
you something is old, or like how does that? Like I
Yeah,
can see the
it
faculty
will.
affairs one is, well, there's a 5-year-old one. How would we go about archiving it, or what do we do?
Yeah, it comes through as you're reporting on each referral throughout the year. As that checklist comes to an end, then I would know to go ahead and archive that referral.
Okay.
So as you see on this checklist here, we would know as each person is checking off and making sure that this referral is going down, you know, its respective progress, that by the time we get to the end here, I would know to go ahead and archive it, that things are done.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
sure.
I had a quick question. I was trying to find a link to Trello from the Senate website, but I'm not sure where it is.
Is there not a link on the website? Let's
I
see.
could direct them.
Okay.
Um, here, let me share my screen. Hi, everyone. So if you go to, actually here, I'll click to the home. So the homepage of the Senate website, on the left side, guides, senators, chairs, and officers right here. Go to the guide for committee chairs. If you scroll down, respond to and manage referrals. Open this Trello, it will open like a little cheat sheet. Now inside this document is another Trello link right here. But once you sign in, you should have access to Trello as a chair. And then it will show you your referral if you have one.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll post this link in the chat right now.
That's funny, Savannah, because I was honestly thinking the same thing. People might be giving up when they get to this guide.
Okay, so we'll go back to the deck, and this is the last slide. Just also to confirm, we update the referral status monthly. So once the referral table that's in the Senate agenda has been generated, we just copy out the section and update right into your committee thing. So it will not be necessarily instantaneous. So if you've closed out something and it's still listed, it'll be okay. The refresh interval is roughly monthly. So I appreciate that, but it should be reflected in the next version of the referral chart that comes to Senate.